For today's lesson, our topic is kinds of pastry. What is pastry? Pastry is a dough made from flour, fat, and water. Eggs, cheese, or sugar can be added for a richer dough. A variety of dishes can be made with the different kinds of pastry. Characteristic of a good pastry. It must be light golden brown color. Lightness. It means not heavy, doughy, or soggy. Flakiness: the layers of the dough should have thin flakes, or the crust should be flaky with lots of very tiny blisters on the surface. Tenderness: it bakes easily when beaten or cuts readily with a fork without crumble. Shortness: the short crust pastry should have crumble easily without breaking up. And of course, it must have an acceptable flavor. These are the kinds of pastry. The first one is the filo pastry. This is made with high gluten content, flour by hands, gently rolling, stretching or pressing the dough into very thin sheets. It is a thin and fragile pastry that dries out quickly. Examples of the filo pastries are the samosas, baklava, borek, and spring rolls, or what we call the lumpiang Shanghai. The second is the short crust pastry. Fat is rubbed into the flour using fingertips or a food processor before adding liquid. It is often used for the base of a tart, quiche, or pie. It does not pop off during baking because it usually contains no leavening agent. It is possible to make short crust pastry with self-rising flour. The pastry is rested and chilled before being used. The third kind of pastry is the choux pastry. This pastry includes eggs as an important ingredient. There is a high proportion of liquid and the flour is also beaten into the melted fat. The mixture is piped onto a baking sheet and becomes nicely puffed up, with a cavity that can be filled with sweet or savory fillings. It is used for making cream puffs and eclairs. The examples of the choux pastries are the cream buns, eclairs, and profiteroles. The fourth kinds of pastries is the hot water crust pastry. This type of pastry is not very well known in the Caribbean, but it is used for puddings and meat pies, particularly pork. The fat is usually lard and the flour beaten into a hot liquid. Plain flour, salt, egg yolk, and lard melted with the hot water. The pastry can be used to line deep tins of molded over containers while still warm. The examples of the hot water crust pastry are pork pie and the other meat pies. Number 5 is the rough puff or flaky pastry. This is the richest type of pastry since it is contained of equal weights of fat and flour. The method of incorporating the fat with the flour is different from short crust and flaky pastry. The pastry is baked at a high temperature initially and then finished being baked at a slightly cooler temperature. The examples of the rough puff or flaky pastries are sausage rolls, savory pie crust, and tarts. Number 6. Suet crust pastry. It is mainly used for steak and kidney puddings. The fat used is beef suet. Unlike the other types of pastry, this is the only type of pastry in which a chemical rising agent is added and the only type that can be boiled or steamed. This pastry is made with self-rising flour, shredded suet, and sometimes white breadcrumbs. The examples of the suet crust pastries are the steak and kidney pudding. I hope you learned a lot today about the kinds of pastry. So that's all for Module 16. If you have questions, you can press the hand signal. Thank you for listening. This is Miss Jimmy at Leo Sangalang signing off for the discussion. Stay safe and God bless.